focus on relationship, don't focus on rules and conditions. So focus on relationship, don't focus on rules and regulations. And if you have your Bible, you can read through. I will ask the passages. Can somebody read for me John chapter 15, Gospel of John 15, verse 15? English, Tamil, Kannada, all good. So John, Gospel of John, verse 15. I no longer call you servants. What is the difference between friends and servants? Keep just for 1 minute, not long discussions, just 1 minute. What's the difference between servants and friends? Okay. Can I call your attention back here? If you just report back short of your difference between friends and servants. Servants always have to serve wicked master. Friends, equal status. Okay? Okay. Anyone come back? Well, then, yes. You have no option, right? Just follow that. Anyone else from here? Yes.
So, I mean, friends can be openly, we can share anything close, but not as a servant, we cannot speak anything. Have a rules and regulations.
Don't use that in the problem. Actually, if you really see when Jesus said what he said in John 15:50, he invited his disciples. All these days, if you really see, the disciples called Jesus as the master. Right? Master, what should we do? We do this, should we do that? Here, Jesus, as he's speaking, the end of his ministry, said, I do not call you servants, but I call you my friends. He was called disciples. Being a servant, you have obligations. You don't have a choice. Right? Somebody said, the master says do that. We're all employees, right? I don't think we can talk to our bosses back. The boss says what you have to do. We all follow that. Sometimes we need fear. But friendship is a bit different. Friendship, no obligation there. They love you, that's the reason they show up, right? And there is no fear, absolutely trust. And that is what Jesus is calling his disciples for. That is what he's calling all of us in John chapter 15. So, as leaders, we need to put back this in our midst. It's not just our relationship with Jesus of intimacy. As we reach out to children, we have to bring back the heart of Jesus. So our goal is not just to go through that big book. That's not our goal. Teach that, but our focus is reaching them. Focus larger relationship. It's not just going through the lesson in that 45 minutes that we have. Our focus should be each child that we know them, he said, just as Jesus was very much interested of his disciples. And we understand his disciples failed him in everything, but he still chose to love. That's what who God is. So when we go back as leaders to our children, our call is the same. We need to bring back the heart of Jesus there. We need to create an atmosphere of friendship where you're interested, genuinely interested to know that child. And we want to see that by that they will also know Jesus. Two is they also build lasting friendship. That's what we are telling Sam. There's this amazing group. The time the first time coming here and seeing your group. They have come the seventh time. There's a lot of community friends here, so they have to come to the group. And of course, we need to call because it's all about relationship, right? You all know each other for a long time. You love each other, you care for each other. Go back at leaders. You work on how to open this relationship. It's not about like a rules and regulations. Don't bring back, take them back to the school. Just because there is Sunday school, don't bring back sitting in order, discipline, don't say that, don't do that. Not relationship. They will be messy. We should love them. So very important thing. Focus on relationship, not rules and regulations. But the next thing, what we can do to reach children. Don't give everyone a chance to talk. Don't just call on you or call on you. Can somebody read for me? Okay, we just see whenever Jesus said something, he usually asked a question and he waited for and he made everyone to follow Jesus. And it was a smart move. So when people engage in question, we're talking about what they do is they discover. They discover sticks longer. They learn more. They travel more deeply. So if you want to reach others, give them chance to talk. To think, what happens when they talk? We feel like if I just now I'm asking you all to talk today. I'm maybe all in small videos.
Now you all discuss. I can simply go about telling this 10 or 12, 15 points just like that and follow this one. But when you discuss, when I ask you questions, when you discuss, what happens? You think, you process, and basically you also draw conclusion at the end. And that's what is happening now. We don't know, we don't think this is all we are doing. But whenever anyone poses a question, what we go back is we think about it. So our goal is not just stand there and talk non-stop. It's not a goal to cover the lesson. Our goal is to do that kids learn. How do they learn? You as a leader ask right questions. And Jesus asked several questions. He was not just someone who just taught them, gathered everyone and teaching a seminar on how to do it. Did he do that? As the conversation happened, he asked questions, several questions. Why? Why do people call me teacher? Why do people call me good? Right? And sometimes he shared the parable and never explained it. People came back with questions. So, how do we do it? How do we encourage everybody to talk? Although we are almost 40 plus people here, I divided all of you into small groups. Recording in progress. We either have pairs, if the smaller group is, pairs when I say 2 people, 3 people, trios, or even 4. That enhances discussion. And once the discussion happens, don't stop there. I'm doing something here as an example. I'm asking you back to report. What did you discuss? And we as a
பின்பு பாத்திரத்தில் தண்ணீரை பார்த்து சீஷருடைய கால்களை கழுவவும் தாம் கட்டிக் கொண்டிருந்த சிறையினால் துடைக்கவும் கூறினார். அவர் சீமோன் வந்தபோது அவன் அவரை நோக்கி, ஆண்டவரே, நீர் என் கால்களை கழுவலாமா என்றான்.
In all the learning that he went through with Jesus in this very passage. Right? What did Jesus do? It's a very important passage. If you would have to come to, we actually do this as an experiment or a part of a real experience. And I don't want to do that today, but simple as such, it's all about Jesus taught about servanthood, just with what he did here. He didn't give a class on servanthood, but what he did an experience for us. He himself went ahead and washed the feet of his disciples. So, what you learn through experiences can sweep way right through your bones. Experiential learning it becomes a bedrock for your own life. So, most of you, if you ask yourself, what have you learned in your life, you would probably say you go back to experiences. You won't remember I read this in my class 5 or class 6 or class 10 or class 12 or even the book that you're reading recently or even the sermons or the teaching. Most of us forget that. It has been said, whatever you are listening to me, in this 20 minutes you will forget, or 2 minutes you will forget 20% of what you're listening to. The next half day you will forget 60% of it. One day after one day you will forget almost 90%. And that's the fact about memory loss. So when we teach, we have to teach experientially. So our goal is to bring back the Bible. It's not just about relying on lectures. It's easy for me to sit here and talk a lot of things. I love, it's one of my strength area to just talk. But experiential learning includes 90% of the tensions. So our group, whenever we do any Bible thing, we don't just tell about the Bible story, we get back kids to experience the Bible story. So today, Sam will be doing something from page number 2, one of the lessons. He will not just tell this is what happened. You all will be part of it, of experiencing the lessons. So he will not just talk about the lesson, but he will help you to experience the lesson. So when you go back as leaders, your goal is to help children experience the lesson, not just talk about it. Next, do discover together or discovery together. Do not rely on your insights only. Can somebody read Matthew chapter 13 verses 44? Matthew chapter 13 verses 44.
The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in the field. When a man found it, he hid it again. And then in his joy went and sold all he had and brought that field.
This is something that Jesus said. So the fact is about the importance of what this man rejoiced here. So anything that we discover, we put a special shine on it, right? I don't know whether you guys have experienced, but if you discover something, we call as a euphoria moment. Discover something that you are working towards. It's always something we hold very close to, and we feel this us because you found it, right? Nobody did. You found it. You own it actually, and you don't want to let it go. The same principles holds when you are teaching. Your goal is not just to teach children. You have to help them discover God speaking to them through God's word. And that's our goal. We're just a coach. We're not going to tell them. The problem in our culture, we all like to say everything what they have to do. We all have been grown up like that. My parents feel offended if I don't follow everything, even now as being an adult, because it's how our culture is. they are also raised in the same way. We bring back the same thing to our children at church, in our homes too. But what is very important is we have to help kids discover. Our role is to help them. So you as a teacher, your goal is not to just tell them what God is telling them. Your goal is to help them to discover what God is telling them. When they discover it, they will own it more than what you teach them. Sometimes you feel if I say this thing, they will change. Absolutely not. But if they discover, they will hold very closely to you. So our goal as leaders is to help them to discover, not your insights. Sometimes we believe, oh, I know this word, so they have to listen to me. They will listen to it, but they will not take it very seriously. So if you tell people truth, they either take it or leave it. If they discover, it becomes a part of who they are. They take it and they do not let it go. Because it captures their heart and it falls along. So do not merely deliver in lecture. Help them to discover. So your goal is to discover. Then do share stories. Do not ignore what God's doing. Can somebody read Psalm 71:15? Psalm 71:15.
ನನ್ನ ಬಾಯಿ ದಿನವೆಲ್ಲ ನಿನ್ನ ನೀತಿಯನ್ನು ರಕ್ಷಣೆಯನ್ನು ಲೆಕ್ಕಿಸುವುದು ಅವುಗಳ ಸಂಖ್ಯೆಗಳು ನನಗೆ ತಿಳಿಯದು. Amen.
This is what the psalm is telling about, to declare about how the goodness of God, the greatness of God. And look, we call this as, if you don't know, we've done DBS a couple of years, but we call this as God sighting. Anyone remember what God sighting is? God sighting? No? God sighting, anyone? He's using the same principle, the memory loss principle that we all follow. Anyone remember? Yes.
I think it's discovering what God is doing in that
In our personal life, yeah. So what we are basically telling is, in God sighting, that God was not active only in the Bible times. He is active right here in our midst. Right? So sometimes we only go back and tell what God has done in the Bible and forget what God is doing in our lives. So we believe like telling stories about how God is showing up to work in and through His people. So this is basically evidence of God working in the world. So when you encourage people to share stories, so when you are the leaders, don't just tell about God's word, that is very important, but you also share your own stories. Stories that point to the power of God. And you are setting an expectation that God isn't yet retired. So now I would want you to do something. Within this room, within the prayers that you have, I want you to share with your friends how God has shown His love to someone in this room, within yourself. How God has shown His love to you recently. How God has shown His love recently to you. Share with me, discuss with your friends, or share with your friends.
తర్వాత ఫస్ట్ ఎక్స్పీరియన్స్ చేసిన తర్వాత వెచ్చి దాని తర్వాత చక్కని
Okay, can I get your attention back here? Okay. Few groups respond back what we share. Anyone wants to respond back? Yes, please. Others, yeah. Yes, we can just ask everybody to just decide. Yes, yes, brother, please.
What 20% for silver?
Amazing. So when you just think when brother shares this story to the children, they were not just seeing God was active in the Bible times, God was active in his own life. You see the difference? So we have to tell stories. Anyone else over here? Yes, brother. Maybe yes.
Actually, in the COVID period, we all were positive, me, my wife, both kids. That time we had many deaths around us. We saw our neighbor, father and daughter die on the same day. So we were literally scared. We were literally waiting for 4 days to cross. And after that, we were waiting for 1 week to cross. Then 2 weeks, then 1 month. It was like that virus load actually exists for 90 days. They say. We literally waited for 90 days to cross. It's like God protected us.
Yeah. Anyone else? Yes.
It's a long time ago. Second after ரொம்ப பழைய காலம் இந்த என்னாச்சுனாக்கா ஒரு நாளைக்கு நானே மனைவி 2 வருஷம் வந்து மனைவியை போன கேட்டு போயிருக்கும்போது அங்க போயிட்டு பெட்ரோல் ஆயிடுச்சு வந்து வரும்போது தூரம் வந்து ரோடு இருக்கும் ஆயிடுச்சு யாருமே இல்லை அப்போ திடீர்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா ஒரு வேன் நிறைய ஆளுங்க வந்தாங்க இந்த வேன்ல ஏறினாங்க அவர் சொன்ன ஏசப்பா அப்படின்னு தான் கடவுளை கொடுத்துட்டோம் உடனே அந்த வேனுக்கு ஒரு மோடியில விழுந்துச்சு சைடில் போயிடுச்சு ஏசப்பான்னு சொல்லி திரும்ப இன்னொரு வண்டி வந்து அந்த அவங்க இறங்கி வண்டி எடுத்து அவர் வண்டியில வச்சு எடுத்துன்னு வந்து பெட்ரோல் வரைக்கும் பெட்ரோல் போட்டு நீங்க வீட்டுக்கு சேஃபா போகணும் அப்படின்னு சொன்னாங்க இது எவ்வளவு பெரிய மிராக்கள்னா நாங்க எல்லா இடத்துலயும் எங்க பசங்களுக்கு தான் சொல்லுவோம் ஏசப்பா இது தப்பு இல்லை பெட்ரோலுக்கு நம்ம உதாரணம் பேசுறாங்க.
Sister? Yes. Praise God. So just so encouraging to just hear stories for us and itself. I'm encouraged for sure just to hear because I didn't go through any of these things. Just hearing that what God has done in your life is an encouragement. That's what God's writing is. So we are not just here to tell about what is there in God's word, but tell what God is doing in our lives. And sometimes ask children to share their stories too. Not just your story. See, I can tell my story now. I didn't do that, right? I could have just said, this is how God has shown me His love to me and stopped and would have gone ahead. But I said, you share. So now, the benefit of it, so many people shared so many stories. Right? And that, there was one more sister who wanted to share. Yes, sister, please share.
Situation God will really help us. Like I had a problem. So I had research of all type of problems like English accent, higher reading. Many times I heard about some other treatments also. But I was a little nervous and scared, and I was asking God, how will this get developed? I don't know God, please help me. Is there a problem who can relieve my pain and relieve my pain? And that Sunday I was very heavy in my heart. Suddenly, God sent a sister, and we were being fellowshipping for a long time. So I'm praying for a long fellowship, and through her I went to a doctor. And the doctor gave me 3 times I went to him, and he stand with God. That friend is just next to me again here. Telling that God, when tomorrow when we teach children, then share to your friend God. Thank God for any situation. I'm not sure.
Yes, brother.
It's a miracle actually. When I was traveling in the highway, truck rang me. The road was divided. I have to go straight, and there is a road going to the left. The guy who wanted to go to the left banged me. Literally myself and my friend, we were on the main road. The first wheel of the truck hit me, and I was waiting for the second wheel to run over me. This guy was supposed to go in that direction, he changed the direction, he went another way. That's the thing how God changes the direction, fraction of a second he changes. Not only that, in the COVID time, I have a habit of, oh, is this way, just go and help them out. Went to so many places. Every time I test, everybody says, Ganesh, you will be positive. They said, no. Every time I tested, it's negative only. I say, God is in control of our lives. That's something, God made me mind.
Great stories, just so we as a group of adults, we are all encouraged, blessed with the stories. That's something that I want you all to go back and teach Sunday school. But the thing is not just lecturing them about what's there in that book, faith we got, or just explain what's there in God's word, but that's what God is doing. In your own life, you have to start. That's a good example. Then ask them to say, this is what God is doing. They may take some time, but they will share. So what happens is making space for God's sighting adds immediacy and excitement to your teaching. It's not just about when you ask this, it gets an excitement to hear, especially children. Because what you're doing basically, you're shifting the spotlight from yourself, and the spotlight is towards who? God. If you're teaching, the spotlight is on you. When you share what God is doing, the spotlight is to God. So that's a very important thing about encouraging sharing stories as you teach. Next, do embrace emotions, do not fear them. Will somebody read for me Luke chapter 8, verses 22 to 25? Luke chapter 8, verses 22 to 25.
Chapter 8,
22 to 25.
அவர் அவர்களை நோக்கி உங்கள் விசுவாசம் எங்கே என்றார். அவர்கள் பயந்து ஆச்சரியப்பட்டு இவர் யாரோ காற்றுக்கும் ஜலத்துக்கும் கட்டளையிடுகிறார், அவைகளும் இவருக்கு கீழ்ப்படுகிறது என்று ஒருவர் சொல்லிக் கொண்டார்கள். பின்பு கலிலேயாவிற்கு எதிரான கதிரனுடைய நாட்டில் சேர்ந்தார்கள். அவர் கரையில் இறங்கின போது நெடுநாளாய் பிசாசுகள் பிடித்தவனும் வஸ்திரம் தெரியாதவனும் வீட்டில் தங்காமல் வேத கல்லறைகளில் தங்கினவனுமாய் இருந்த அந்த பட்டணத்து மனுஷன் ஒருவன் அவருக்கு எதிராக வந்தான்.
So Jesus was not afraid of emotions when he is dealing with people. The disciples, if you really look, was terrified when they awakened Jesus, because they thought they will all die. The storm will take over them. Though he know Jesus here, he gave importance to teach them a lesson about his love and power. Jesus did not say, calm down, or do not be upset. Did he use those words? We often say if children are going mad, what do we do? I think we don't like when children are having all emotions. Right now, even here, I have given you a little space to just talk. And talk more than the limited time I can bring you back. But it's emotions, right? In the hall that people are expressing as they are sharing. So when you're dealing with children will also have different emotions. Sometimes some kids get overexcited. Some kids are naughty when you're sharing certain things. An immediate response for us is to say, stop them, right? Because why? You want to be in control of the session. If it is noisy, you feel the session is not controlled. Because that's how we've been taught. In our classrooms, in our schools, the class that is silent is a class that is serious. Class that makes noise is all the backbenchers, right? Actually, in our schools, we divide section A, B, C like that only. Some of you are teachers here. Anybody teachers? Yeah. Section A are always the good students. The more the section behind, which means they're all not good for studies. My mother-in-law was taught English for 30 years. She hated, she always loved to be a teacher of class teacher of section A. Because she said that's so easy. And if the school has appointed her to be a class teacher of B or C, she said, man, this year going to be painful. Because they are competent. So sometimes we think classroom or sessions we teach, there are so much of emotions going on, we feel the teaching is not happening. That is wrong. Jesus was not afraid of emotions. He slept as if he was not knowing what was happening, right? He didn't know. He wanted to know how his disciples would react to. Actually, emotions are an on-ramp to engagement. Means, I'm saying on-ramp, it's a ramp which will engage for conversations. It opens up hearts and cements learning takes place. So there is said when emotion is involved in learning, learning is cemented. I say that again, when emotions are involved in learning, learning is cemented. So when we are learning here, if you ask what is the best part of all the things, would be the laughter sessions. You ask anybody, the more the laughter you had, more the fun you had, when emotions you will remember that emotions are good and it's not a bad in it. And sometimes when it's going out of control, okay, when people are engaged emotionally, they are also wide awake and paying attention. So when you are all talking here and engaging with me, I know you are listening to me. If you are all just nodding your head, I know what is not going on. I cannot guarantee say that how much you are listening to me. Sometimes I've seen in church people speak to, right? Yeah? So when your class or a group get a little messy, people are actually grappling with ideas, interrupting one another, not all quite in agreement. So what we need to do is, actually real discovery is happening. So when you're all messy, you're discussing and sharing your stories, so I can say, man, this is out of control. I have to bring back attention. So, what you have to do is to never quench emotions. You need to explore it. And some of the ways that we can do, if there is little out of control, you can ask a question like this. You seem to feel strongly about that. Help me understand why. Right? Don't say it's wrong. Children will say, no, I don't believe that Jesus really fed 5,000 people. They can say, okay. Yeah. They can say. You cannot just shut them there. You come and meet me later. Tell me your parents should come and meet you. You're in real trouble. But when we ask a question, you seem so strong about that. Tell me, understand why you're saying that. I'll make a try to think about it. Okay? Or I'm wondering what's going on in right now. It's out of control. You ask that question. So use emotion. Emotion is happening, don't waste it. Jesus did not. So let's get on to the next. Do ask, don't always tell. Read sometimes, somebody read Mark chapter 8 verses 27. Mark chapter 8 verses 27.
ತರುವಾಯ ಯೇಸುವು ಆತನ ಶಿಷ್ಯನು ಕೈಸರಿಯ ಫಿಲಿಪ್ಪಿಗೆ ಹೋದರು. ಆತನು ದಾರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ತನ್ನ ಶಿಷ್ಯರಿಗೆ ನಾನು ಯಾರೆಂದು ಜನರು ಅನ್ನುತ್ತಾರೆ ಎಂದು ಕೇಳಿದನು. Amen.
Jesus actually loved pulling people in close by asking questions. I told you before, right? Jesus asked a lot of questions. Why do you doubt? Why worry about the speck in your brother's eye and not worry about the log in your own eye? His questions engaged, he enraged and enlightened, and that led to changed lives. So people, when they are answering your questions, are often sorting their answers in real time. So when I'm asking you a question, when you are all thinking what to say, you are basically sorting answers in real time. They are doing more than processing information. What they are doing? they are deciding what they believe. So it's very important to ask questions. And that's what Jesus did when he was here. He asked questions because he wanted to know why, what their understanding is. And we're going to discuss a little bit more later. It is good to ask open-ended questions. Out of it, it's good to ask open-ended questions, not yes or no questions or where questions. Where question like where was Jesus born? Or do you believe Jesus is God? Those are not open-ended questions. Specific questions. Don't ask what did Jesus say while on the cross. Very easy, right? But rather ask why did Jesus feel abandoned while on the cross? I'll make children to think about it. A well-crafted question does more than teach, it teaches. So it's important for you to think when you are leading sessions to ask good questions. We're going to explore a little bit about that. Then, do pause, don't talk non-stop. We all love talking. I love talking. We need a pause. Can somebody read Matthew chapter 13, verse 10? Yes. So here Jesus shared a parable and he just walked out. The disciples did not understand the parable. The context is that. Then they come and ask this question. Jesus, you shared the parable, but you did not understand. Explain the meaning of it. So Jesus did not fear silence. He would say a parable and did not explain. So, let me ask you, why do you think Jesus told parables?
Start thinking about what said. They remember. After we saw as a museum.
Parable something happens in your daily life.
Okay. So, yes,
It's hidden meaning in the parables we have there.
parables. So, what did I do here? I just asked a question. You guys responded pretty fastly. There are times, sometimes kids will take time. Okay, that's called as a think time. When they are thinking, we should not just jump in and tell the answer. Think time leads to growth. It leads to depth. It also leads a breakthrough. If you jump too quickly, if I would have asked and you guys would have kept quiet for a while, and if I answered, then I stopped many of your thinking also. You would rob another people chance to grapple with their thoughts and emotions. Actually, you would pause or you would stop their thinking. So, pause while you are teaching. So, next important thing, do accept, don't judge. Can somebody read Romans chapter 15, verse 7? Romans chapter 15, verse 7.
ಆದ್ದರಿಂದ ಕ್ರಿಸ್ತನ ಸಹ ನಿಮ್ಮನ್ನು ದೇವರ ಮಹಿಮೆಗಾಗಿ ಸೇರಿಸಿಕೊಂಡಂತೆ ನೀವು ಒಬ್ಬರನ್ನೊಬ್ಬರು ಸೇರಿಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳಿರಿ.
Here, Paul is encouraging the end of the letters to Romans to accept one another. Right? The important things of acceptance is you can accept somebody's thought without agreeing with those thoughts. I'll say that again. You can accept somebody else's thought without accepting their thought. Which means you accept the person, but you don't actually agree to what the person is telling. And that's what Jesus did most times. He came with questions. If you see with Nicodemus, that was a conversation that happened. He said and responded, asked questions back. So you can accept a person without endorsing everything that person believes. Right? You can accept everything about a person without endorsing to believe what the person believes. We are called, all of us are called to offer acceptance and friendship. And that's how Christianity is different. We're not a closed group. We are not an exclusive group. So when we are teaching children, it's the same thing. We accept all children. Sometimes kids may say something very wrong too. But we help them. So how do we do it? I'm wondering how did you come to that conclusion? Right? You're not just saying that's a wrong answer. You should never do that. Means you don't reject when kids share some of their thoughts. If you reject that, they will never share again. Right? Or tell me more. As for me, I have discovered. Okay? Judgment shuts down discovery and relationship. Acceptance leaves the door. So what we are encouraging, what Paul was encouraging the believers to accept one another. Basically, what we have to apply in our Sunday school as you are the believers, accept kids. And you should not judge them, rather help them. Next, important thing, do welcome doubts, don't dismiss them. Can somebody read John chapter 20, verses 24 to 25? Yes.
ஏற்று கொண்டாரா அன்பில் செலுத்தி வருகிறாரா நினைவில் வைத்துக் கொள்ளுமா ஒரே காய்
So this passage is very famous, right? So what do we call Thomas here? What do we call Thomas here? Doubting Thomas. Is it Thomas was doubting here? Or was Thomas very transparent here? Maybe other disciples also thought, but didn't have the courage to ask. Have you thought of that? We have always preached that Thomas was doubting. Right? We have made this passage most times as doubting Thomas. So we even say Thomas believes that, history believes that Thomas came to India, right? It is the same. Okay, historical evidence says, different theories says that Thomas came to India. So they say doubting Thomas came to India, which is from this passage. Was Thomas doubtful or was he very transparent here? We don't know, right? It can be either. But I think he was transparent. Maybe the other disciples thought the same. We didn't have the courage to ask Jesus. So if people can't raise doubts about their faith in church, where can they talk about their doubts? Children cannot raise their questions and doubts in your Sunday school, in your classes. Where do you accept that they will ask those questions in their schools? No, right? So we should encourage kids to come up and share their doubts. When a sincere doubt surfaces, maybe when you are teaching, some kid says, I don't believe this happened. Some kids say, I don't believe today's kids, schools are teaching them about evolution, right? Schools are teaching evolution. So we are teaching Genesis and kids says, I don't believe God really created the world. They believe in the Big Bang theory. What would you do? Shut them off? It's easy, that's what we have been doing. Rather than that, we should try to understand. But we ask others, what do you all think about it? Say Sam is saying, I believe in Big Bang. Okay? Or probably if I was a teacher teaching, he would say, what do you all think about it? So everybody answers instead of shutting Sam down. I say, Sam, meet me later. Okay? You're not wrong, you're not right. That's not the way to do it. So we should encourage sincere questions in our Sunday schools. But the fact is, I think our children are more exposed to a lot of lies outside. If we are teaching truth, when truth comes, then the lies will also be exposed. They will definitely come with doubts. So in our families, in our Sunday school, never discourage children asking questions or asking doubts. They are sincere. Thomas was very sincere in this passage. Is this really Jesus? I really want to see, is this Jesus? And maybe children would come in the same way. Did Jesus say anything to Thomas there? Did Jesus confronted Thomas in the passage? We have translated and done the interpretation that he's a doubting Thomas. Oh, Jesus did not do that. Jesus actually showed and said, there are many who will probably not see, who believe me. And that is all of us, right? That promise is about us too. We did not see Jesus, but we have believed in him. And he called them, they will be blessed. Thomas wanted a sign to see this is really Jesus. Kids will come to doubts. We need to increase that doubts in our Sunday school. So make your class, a group, a safe place for doubts. We all doubt at times, don't we all? We all doubt. There are times and phases in life that we all have doubted. So we're all in this together. So don't disregard when a child comes to doubt. And we discussed that we need to ask questions, right? So what kind of questions do we need to ask? We need to ask more why questions. Do ask why more often. Do not ask what as often. Can somebody read for me Matthew chapter 19 verses 16 to 17? Matthew chapter 19, 16 to 17. Somebody from the back. Chapter 19 verses 60 to 70. Yes, brother.
Simon Peter answered and said, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered and said unto him, "Blessed art thou, Simon Barjona, for the word flesh and blood has not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven."
Is that the same passage? I'm just a little confused. Yes.
This then the man came up to Jesus and asked, "Teacher, what do you think of the eternal life?" Why do you ask me about what is Jesus replied? There is only one who is good. If you want to enter life, keep the commandments.
Thank you. So here is an young man coming and asking Jesus a question. Good teacher, how do I have eternal life, right? That was his question basically. And what was Jesus' answer? Did he say, do these things? His immediate answer was, why do you call me good? So why questions rock backs on our ears? They quietly demand that we consider our motives. It explains our thinking, reconsiders our conclusions and positions. So if I'm teaching a class on this passage, I would ask this why questions. Why do you think that Jesus just gave this guy an answer? Why do you think Jesus did not just give this guy an answer? Jesus did not give a direct answer here. Right? I'm asking a question to the children. Why do you think Jesus did not give a direct answer to this guy? Why would Jesus want someone to think for himself? Again, why would Jesus want someone to make decisions? What happens with why? It makes people think. When you're saying an answer, they will think, they will say their belief. Understand the question of why question is important? Rather, if I do a what questions in the same passage, what did the man ask Jesus? Very simple, right? What did Jesus say to this guy? Again, be there. What questions are more related to information? why questions engages them to find their own answers. So when you're doing any class as a discussion, quite often use why questions. You see, Jesus always used why questions. Why? Why do you call me good? Why do I have to tell this answer? If you don't know, the parable, when we didn't tell the parable explanation just like that to disciples. We actually rebuked them and then gave them answer. So, use why questions. Finally, as I conclude, to focus on them. Don't just do what's comfortable. To focus on them means focus on children. Don't just do what is comfortable for you. There are multiple ways to learn. And your lessons will be stronger if you incorporate more than one or two ways of method of teaching. The problem is here with all of us. Most of us tend to teach the same way we learn. That means if you are a lecture lover, you teach using lectures. So if you are an artist, your lessons always include drawing or dance. Understand? So our problem is what we are good at. We all are good in something. When we go back to teaching the children, we use the same thing what we are good at. But actually, it's good at least to incorporate 2 or 3 styles. At group, we write every lesson in 8 ways or 8 smarts that we incorporate. We believe this is a theory by Howard Gardner. It's called intelligence theory. He said there are 8 kinds of learners. At group, we call as 8 smarts. There are kids who are word smart. There are kids who are picture smart. There are kids who are music smart. There are kids who are body smart. There are kids who are logic smart. There are kids who are people smart. There are kids who are self smart. And there are kids who are nature smart. These are all type of learners. So when you sit in your class, you will have all these learners. So when we write lessons, we incorporate all of this what we teach. The big book that you teach. Reason it's book because it's included with all these type of learners. So you have to cultivate an habit of not just what you're good at, but rather focus at least okay, I do. So when you open and teach faith weaver, you would probably do something which is uncomfortable for you. Reason we have written that what is effective for children. We call as a learner based. We're all a product of teacher based. All of us sit here. All of us are a teacher based product. We are integrating the most effective way of reaching children is to become learner based. Jesus was learner based. All you said parables, this thing. That was a genre that was never in the Bible. It was a new genre that Jesus introduced. Why? Because Jesus wanted to reach that people. Parable would have made more sense to them than for us. Understand? Because he wanted to reach. That's the reason he stood down to teach in parables. So when we are teaching, we are called to teach where our learners will learn, not what you're good at. So come out of your comfort. If you want to really reach children, teach them in the way that they would learn, not in the way that you would learn. With that, I would conclude the few things that we can remind us that we are not just here about teaching. Our call is to teach, teaching hearts, minds, and souls. Our goal is to make Jesus real. Okay, our goal is to see transformation. Not just going through this big book. This big book of faith weaver should help children to know Jesus and follow Jesus. Thank you all. We'll take a 2-3 minutes break. Okay, and Sam will begin the next session. Thank you all.
Thank you.
ಇಲ್ವೇ ಏನಾಯ್ತು ಒಂದು ಹಣ ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟ ಎಲ್ಲೋಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಂಡೆ ಬಂದಿದ್ದೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ತೋರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ನೋಡಿ ನೋಡಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ಪಿನ್ ಹಾಕ್ತೀರಾ ಹ್ಮ್ 2000 ಇಂಟು 8 ಸಾರಿ ಇಲ್ಲ 4 ಹ್ಮ್ ಹ್ಮ್ 35,000 100 into 1 100 43,000 ಏನ್ ಭಾನುವಾರ ಮಾತ್ರ ನಿಮ್ ಮಾತ್ರ ಕ್ಯಾಶ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಊಟ ಆಯ್ತಾ ತಿನ್ನಲ್ಲ ಬೋಂಡಾ ವಡೆನಾ ಏನಿದೆ ಸ್ಯಾಮ್ಸಂಗ್ ಸರ್ ಊಟ ಏನು ಏನ್ ಬಿಲ್ಲ ಯಾಕೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ನಿಮ್ದು ಬರೀ ಹೊರ್ತು ಬಿಡಿ ನಾಳೆ ಬರೋದು ಬರೀ ಅದೇ ಬಿಲ್ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ ಇದು ಯಾರಿಗೆ ಬಿಲ್ ಬರೀತಿತ್ತು ಕೊಡಿ ಯಾರ್ ಫ್ಯಾನ್ ಹಾಕಿದ್ದೆ ಫೋನ್ ನಂಬರ್ ಏನು ಸರ್ ಇದೇನು ನಂಬರ್ 944 ಓಕೆ ರೂಮ್ ನಂಬರ್ 014 ಚೆಕಿಂಗ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಬಂದು ಇವತ್ತೇನು ಡೇಟ್ ಅದೇ ಇದು 31 ಎಷ್ಟು ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ 2 ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ಗಂಡ ಹೆಂಡ್ತಿ. ಓ 7 ತಿಂಗಳು ಮುಗಿದೋಯ್ತು ಸ್ಯಾಮ್ಸಂಗ್ ಸರ್ ಹೆಂಗೋಯ್ತು ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಈ ವರ್ಷ 7 ತಿಂಗಳು ಮುಗಿದೋಯ್ತು ಹ್ಮ್ ಸೊ ಎಷ್ಟು 1200 into 2 2 days ಅಲ್ಲ ಏನ್ ತಪ್ಪಾಗಿದ್ರೆ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ಸಲ್ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ತಪ್ಪಾಗಿದ್ರೆ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ಸಲ್ ಎಷ್ಟು 144 2 ದಿವಸ 1
Hi everyone, good evening. Good to see that a lot of information is very good. How many of you know English? About English? Tamil? Kannada? Okay, so I know நம்ம English chicken நிறைய சாப்பிடுறோம் தெரியுது. Request everyone to stand up and stand up line. Push the chairs one side. Okay, so I'm going to play an audio clip now. Okay, there will be few questions there, and if you agree with that statement or question, what I'm telling you audio clip, you are going to step to the right, your right. Okay, if you don't agree, you will step towards your left. Okay, so you agree, which side is left?
Right. Not agree is left.
Yeah. So you are right, not my right. This side. If you agree, you are on this side. If you disagree, you are on this side. Okay. So I'm going to start the audio clip now. Okay, here we go.
It's wrong to wear fur.
Did you hear that? It's wrong to wear fur. So animals are, some people wear it in fashion. Yeah. So the thing is, it is wrong to wear that. If you agree, come to your right. If you disagree, come to your left. Don't wear it in the Bible. Agree பண்ணுறீங்க, right பண்ணுறீங்க, agree பண்ணி respect பண்ணுறீங்க. ரெண்டு பேரும் கோடை இருக்கிறாங்க. ஒரு தாண்டி ஆமா கண்டிப்பா காரணம் கோடை. People are agree, left. You are right, okay? People don't agree, come to your left. This side. People agree, come this side. This side.
Not agree on the left.
Yes, correct.
Not agree.
Okay, great. Come. Okay, fine. Sorry. This is good. People don't go on that. Cannot go on. Come back to the line. Next statement.
Next statement. தமிழ்ல அப்படியே சொல்ற போது தமிழ்ல சொல்லுங்க.
தமிழ்ல சொல்றாங்க.
It's wrong to smoke cigarettes. It's wrong to smoke cigarettes.
Yes.
It is wrong to smoke cigarettes.
Who is other side of the line?
Next question.
Everyone should be a vegetarian.
Everyone should be a vegetarian.
Right. How they understand?
So basically, everyone is standing towards the left. Go to left and thinking. Agree something on that. Agree something on the right. Go to the right. Who agree?
Ask them what it is.
உங்க ரைட் ஒன் இருக்கணும். நீங்க நான் பேர் ஆல்ரெடி நீங்க அக்ரி பண்ணீங்கன்னா உங்க ரைட் போடணும். நீங்க அக்ரி பண்ணாலும் நான் டிஸ்அக்ரி பண்ணேன்னு சொன்னா நீங்க லெஃப்ட் போடணும். இந்த क्वेश्चन கேள்வி வந்து everyone should be a vegetarian. எல்லாரும் வெஜிடேரியன் தான் இருக்கணும்னு சொல்றாங்க. அக்ரி பண்ணீங்க ரைட் போடுவாங்க, டிஸ்அக்ரி பண்ணீங்க லெஃப்ட் போடுவாங்க. சரி ஓகே குட். நெக்ஸ்ட் இயர்.
Good job.
Next question.
All drug dealers should go to jail.
All drug dealers should go to jail. Agree or disagree? So you disagree?
Come to church.
Okay. So நீங்க கூட கொஞ்சம் நல்ல கிறிஸ்டியன் இருக்காங்க. அவங்க ஜெயிலுக்கு போறாங்க, இந்த சர்ச்சுக்கு போறாங்க, அந்த மாதிரி யோசிக்கிற இருக்காங்க நினைக்கிறேன். சீக்கிரம் போடுவாங்க.
It's okay to pray in school before eating a meal in the cafeteria. In the cafeteria. It's okay to pray in school before eating a meal in the cafeteria.
School cafeteria நீங்க சாப்பிட்டு படிக்க சொல்லிட்டு போய் அப்படி பண்றீங்களா? ரைட் டிசிப்ளின் பண்றீங்களா? ஆன்லைன் கொடுப்பாங்க.
It's okay to pray aloud in school before eating a meal in the cafeteria.
It is okay to pray loud in the school in the cafeteria before eating the meal. Loud பண்ணக்கூடாதா? இது ஓகேனா ரைட் போங்க. If you disagree, come to the left. சாப்பிட்டு மாதிரி லவுடா ப்ரே பண்ணலாம். ஓகே சொல்றது ரைட் போங்க, இல்லன்னு சொல்றது லெஃப்ட் போங்க. சிலது கோர்ட் மேல இருக்கீங்க, அங்க இல்ல அந்த பக்கம் இல்லன்னு போங்க. சரி அடுத்த क्वेश्चन. கோர்ட் மேல
Anyone who brings a gun to school should be immediately expelled.
anyone who is bringing a gun to school should be immediately expelled from the school. Okay, whatever. You agree, come this side, here side, you disagree, come to your left. யார் கோர்ட் மேல இருக்கக்கூடாது, ஒன்று ரைட்ல லெஃப்ட்ல நிக்கணும். ஸ்கூலுக்கு கன் போறாங்கன்னா அவங்க எக்ஸ்பெக்ட் பண்ணணும். யார் அப்படி பண்றீங்க? அவங்க ஸ்கூல்ல இருந்து அனுப்பிடுறாங்க. அவங்க சொல்லுவாங்க அப்படி பண்ணாங்க, ரைட் வாங்க, அப்படி பண்ணா லெஃப்ட் வாங்க, அனுப்பிட்டு இல்லாத இருக்கிறவங்க கோர்ட் மேல நிக்கக்கூடாது. Okay, fine. Good. Back to the point. Back to the line.
Anyone who brings a knife to school should be immediately expelled.
Anyone who brings a knife, cut the school together, what are the attitude of the school? Africa on the right, discipline on the left.
Now you want to.
Court marriage, you should have either agree or disagree. Okay, a lot of people disagree. Good disagreeing in the church. Okay, back to the line.
Racism is always wrong, all the time, and in every circumstance.
Racism is always wrong in all the circumstances. Agree panna on the right, agree panna on the left. Racism, color, national, discrimination, everything tapu, so right, agree panna left corner. Okay. Okay, one final question. Last question.
Spanking a child is wrong. Shush. Spanking a child is wrong.
Spanking a child is wrong. Singapore identity practice court management right to protest. உங்களுக்கு ரைட் சொல்லுங்க உங்க ரைட்டுக்கு வாங்க உங்களுக்கு தப்பு தோணுனா அது லெஃப்ட் வாங்க Okay, next question, back to the line.
It's better to be smart than pretty.
It is better to be smart than pretty. Smart is நல்லது அழகா இருக்கிறதோட ஸ்மார்ட்டா இருக்கு நல்லதுன்னு சொல்றாங்க. Agree means oh my god, how smart is it? Okay, back to the line. Here's the question.
Rich people are usually smarter than poor people.
Rich people are usually smarter than poor people.
Either way, yeah.
Okay, I would like all of you to clap for yourselves. Very good. I want every one of you to sit in a group of three. Groups of three. Okay, that's good, that's good. Let's not clap for ourselves. Good. So, we basically did an activity now, we did an activity now, right? We walked the line and we did a series of statements and questions. And whoever agree, you all like to left, correct? Right. And whoever disagree, then you're? Yes, good. So based on that, we'll have a discussion. I just want you to discuss with your team, okay? So if there is one person who went to the opposite side, will you stop being friends with that person? You would still be friends with that person? You sure? Even though you have a different opinion than yours? How did it feel for you to take a stand on so many issues? There are so many questions. How did it feel, to make a choice between those two decisions? Okay. So, what I'm asking is, how did it feel for you to take the decision? Was it tough? Was it easy?
Sometimes it will be tough, sometimes it will be.
Why is it tough? Why did you feel it was tough to make a stand or make a choice?
If I won't relate to that question, it will be tough. If I relate to that, I'll agree for that.
Okay, so if you relate to the question, it's easy for you. If you don't, then okay. Who else?
It makes a special what you believe in.
Okay, good. It makes you question what you believe. Basically, it makes you question conviction. Okay, great. Who else? Anyone else? Yeah, please.
I think in some cases it was hard.
Okay.
Why it was hard is because if I stand in the wrong place, I feel it is wrong and I will be judged by others.
Yeah, very nice. So sometimes if you think of a wrong opinion or you take a wrong side, then yes, people might end up judging me. Correct? Very good. Okay. So what would happen? You have to take a stand. Okay. There is a question or there is a situation you have to agree or disagree, and for doing that, you have been tempted if you took one certain decision. So what do you do? You would agree or you can still choose to agree or disagree. So you take a choice. For example, there are some questions. Here we came out there. Okay, the situation over there. And you agree or disagree or agree for that. You get beaten for that. You get punished for that. What will you do in that situation? So நீங்க வந்து அடிச்சனோ என்ன பண்ணாலும் பனிஷ்மென்ட் இருக்கா எல்லாத்தையும் you start with conviction. No matter what.
Because anyways, we are going to be criticized, beaten up, so let me take that.
Okay, fine.
Okay, we can stand on.
What do you think? Okay, who else? Think of it.
Also, like, trying to find again, it's a hard, very hard, but you are not trying to get the what age and how the living because of fear. So you say, decide whether it's right or wrong.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. That is not what I'm asking is, just as you played the game, there is a situation in life, okay, that if you agree upon something or if you make a choice to disagree upon something, there will be a consequence for that. For example, if you choose to agree to that particular thing, there is a chance of you getting beaten up or getting punished. In that situation, what will you choose to do? Will you still go ahead with your decision, or because there is a consequence, will you change your decision? You will stand with your conviction, so you will not change your decision. Great, wonderful. So we are going to do something now, but before we go, we are going to activity one now. But before we do that, and I need some people for it, okay? But before we do that, we are going to learn something about what Jesus did. So what did Jesus do? Jesus actually he came to the world, he was born in this world. He lived for 33 or 33.5 years, and then he was died, and he was crucified, died, buried, resurrected, and what happened? Okay, is it good now? Can I speak without the mic? Okay, can you all hear me? Okay, yeah. So he was crucified, died, buried, third day he resurrected, and then what happened?
What he says he was at ascended to the heaven.
Ascended to heaven. He's gone to heaven. Okay. Now, after doing that, he appointed special people. Did he do that?
Yes.
Okay. And why did he appoint special people? Because he started a mission in this world. Okay. After 33 and a half years, he actually ascended to heaven. So what did he do? Since he was not able to complete the mission, he chose few people. He selected people from here and there so that the mission or the work, what he started, he wanted his followers to continue that. Okay? And what Jesus called these people? These people were called as the apostles. What are these people called as? What are these people called? Apostles. Okay? And they were actually continuing the ministry or the work which Jesus was doing or left and went to heaven. Okay? And what these people did, these people, through the name of Jesus or through the power of Jesus, they did lot of miracles. Right? What kind of miracles did they do? They healed the sick, good.
The blind people,
Okay, the blind people got sight. What else? Preaching and teaching. Yes, they healed the sick. Okay, blind people got sight. They did many things, and also mainly they taught about Jesus. Right? To the people, they taught about Jesus. And what happened when they doing all these things? These apostles whom Jesus had appointed, when they doing all these things of teaching about Jesus and doing miracles in the name of Jesus, there were some religious leaders there. Okay, some kind of religious leaders there. Okay, who were very happy. No? Then they're very upset. Right? They became very upset looking at the way the apostles were continuing the work of Jesus. Okay? And then what happened there? We're going to see what exactly happened there. Okay? So for that, I'm going to give you some people some roles. Okay? I will want you to come to the front. Okay? And I will read out the passage from the Bible and you all are going to enact that. Okay? All give me a name. கேட்க மாட்டேங்குது. Okay, good. Okay, great. I need one person to do the role of Peter. Who will do the role of Peter? சீக்கிரம் வரணும். சீக்கிரம் வந்தீங்கன்னா சீக்கிரம் செஷன் முடிக்கலாம், இல்லாத செஷன் டைம் போகும். Peter, the role of Peter. Who want to come? Apostle Peter. You are the smartest disciple or oversmart disciple. Who want to do that? If you are not coming, then I have to call one by one. நீங்க வரீங்களா நான் வந்துடுவா? Peter வந்துட்டா. Very good. Let's clap for Peter. Okay, I need one person to do the role of a sick person. Sick person or
easy track, easy
Okay, now this is a very prestigious role. High priest in the Jewish temple. High priest. I want a jail guard. Who guards the jail? Guard. I want a jail guard. Okay? And I want the Sanhedrin. Okay, that's probably one or two people can come to the front. 1 or 2 or 3 people, like a group, you can come. 2-3 people can come, but just get up and come. Yes. Okay. Wait. And I need one person to do the role of Gamaliel. Gamaliel is there. Very good. Now the rest of you are the crowd, okay, who are witnessing what is happening here. Okay, you all are part of the crowd, okay, general public. Okay, so I have assigned the roles. Now this is Peter. This is the sick.
I'm a sick patient.
High priest, good. Great guardian. Sanhedrin, okay. You three are Sanhedrin and Gamaliel, okay. So you three can be together, okay, you can be separate, okay. Great. So I'm going to read a passage from the Bible, okay. That is from Acts chapter 5. Acts chapter 5, verses 12 to 42. Okay, I'll be reading Acts chapter 5, verses 12 to 42. So, as I'm reading, these people whom we have given them role, they'll be enacting what I'm reading here. Okay? Now, particular enactment cartoon. Okay? Alright? Okay, great. Acts chapter 5, verses 12 to 42, if you want to check. And by the hands of the apostles, numerous and startling signs and wonders were being performed among the people. You don't have to read, you all have to enact. Okay? And by common consent, they all met together in the temple in a covered porch called Solomon's. Okay? And none of those who were not of the number dared to join and associate with them. But the people held them in high regard and praised and made much of them. Now, who is the apostle here? Yeah. So you can just go around, doing things and people be praising. You just go around there. Yeah. Yeah, hold it on. Apostle Peter Niger. Yeah, he preaching miracles. And people should praise them. People should praise the apostles. Okay, more and more were being added to the Lord, and those who believe, who acknowledge Jesus as their Savior and devoted themselves to Him, joined and gathered with them. Crowds both of men and of women. So more and more people were joining the apostles. As they're preaching, they started believing in Jesus. Yeah. So that they even kept carrying out the sick into the streets and placing them on couches and sleeping pads in the hope that as Peter passed by, at least his shadow might fall on some of them. You can walk among the sick people so that your shadow is falling. Yeah, please walk, come. Yeah. You come, walk and come, yes. No, you just have to walk, your shadow should fall on okay. And the people gathered also from towns and hamlets around Jerusalem, bringing the sick and those troubled with foul spirits, and they were all cured. Okay? But the high priest rose up, and all who were his supporters, the Sanhedrin, okay, that was the party of the Sadducees, and being filled with jealousy, and indignation, rage, anger. They seized and arrested the apostles and put them in public jail. அவங்க அரெஸ்ட் பண்ணி ஜெயில போடணும். Now Jesus is acting. But during the night, an angel of the Lord opened the prison doors and leading them out said, "God, take your stand in the temple. You should be all sleeping now. It's the night, okay? Yeah, people here also sleeping. I'm sorry, God, you cannot sleep. People should be sleeping, okay? You should be God, God. You must say God, I will keep it to God, okay? So what happens is, in the night time, அந்த angel வந்து அந்த prison door கலந்து people வந்து கூடி போறாங்க. அந்த angel you can walk out. This angel is taking you out, okay? And angel is telling Peter, go take your stand in the temple courts and declare to the people the whole doctrine concerning this life, the eternal life which Christ revealed. And when they heard this, they accordingly went into the temple. Peter will go to the temple about daybreak and began to preach. Start preaching.
began to teach, start teaching. Okay. Now the high priest and his supporters who are with him arrived and called together the council. Your council, not yeah. You need to call together your meeting, your team. Okay. And all the Senate and sons of Israel, they sent to the prison to have the apostles brought. You are sending people to the prison because you know the Peter is there. Okay, you are thinking, so you are sending people to bring Peter from the prison. Okay. But when the Athenians arrived there, they failed to find them in the jail. They failed to find him in the jail. So they all came down and reported. Okay, again you all meet. See, we found the prison quite safely locked up and the guards were on duty outside the doors. But when we opened it, we found no one on the inside. Now, when the high priest of the temple area and the chief priest heard these facts, they were much perplexed and thoroughly at loss about them, wondering into what this might go. You're all confused now. You're confused, angry, agitated. Okay, because Peter is not there. You put him in jail, you go and you open the door, he's not there. Okay? But some man came, one person can come from the crowd, but some man came and told them, saying, Behold, the men whom you put in jail are standing right here in the temple and teaching the people. Then the military leader went with the Athenians and brought the prisoners, but without violence. Okay, gently, no arresting, without violence. For they dreaded the people, lest they be stoned by them. So they brought them and set them before the council, the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin and the high priest was there. And the high priest examined them by questioning. You are doing questioning now. Saying, we definitely commanded, and I am reading your dialogue. We definitely commanded and strictly charged you not to teach him about this name. Yet, here you have flooded Jerusalem with your doctrine and you intend to bring this man's blood upon us? Then Peter and the apostles replied, we must obey God rather than man. The God of our forefathers raised up Jesus, whom you killed by hanging him on a tree, cross. God exalted him to his right hand to be prince and leader and savior and deliverer and preserver, in order to grant repentance to Israel and to bestow forgiveness and release from sins. You're not supposed to be angry. Angry is supposed to be angry. And we are witnesses of those things, and the Holy Spirit is also whom God has bestowed on those who obey Him. Now, when they heard this, they were cut to the heart and infuriated and wanted to kill the disciples. You're angry now, okay? You're not killing what you want to kill. But a certain Pharisee in the council, Gamaliel, a teacher of the law, highly esteemed by all the people, standing up, ordered that the apostles be taken outside for a little while. He ordered them to take the apostles outside for a little while. Couldn't follow, just order பண்ணு நீங்க கூட்டிட்டு போக மாட்டீங்க நீங்க பெரிய ஆளு just you order them you can take him jail guard can take him and go okay. Then he addressed them, he told the council saying, men of Israel, take care in regard to what you propose to do concerning this man. For before our time there arose Theodoras asserting himself to be a person of importance, with whom a number of men allied themselves, about 400. But he was killed, and all who had listened to him and adhered to him were scattered and brought to nothing. You are enacting what I am trying, okay? And after this, one rose up, Judas the Galilean, during the time of the census, and brought a popular following after him. He also perished, and all his adherents were scattered. Now, in the present case, let me say to you, stand off from these men and let them alone. For if this doctrine or purpose or undertaking or movement is of human origin, it will fail. But if it is of God, you will not be able to stop or overthrow or destroy them. You're acting? You're showing? Yeah, okay. You might even be found fighting against God. So, convinced him, they took his advice and summoning the apostles, bring back the apostles. They flogged him, they beat him, okay? And strictly advise them to speak in or about the name of Jesus and allow them to go. You have to actually flog பண்ணிட்டு you strictly tell him not to talk about Jesus, okay? And you tell him to go. We like that. Yeah. Okay, advice பண்ணி அனுப்பிடுங்க பணம் அப்படின்னு சொல்லி okay அனுப்பிடுங்க. So they went from the presence of the council rejoicing that they will be committed to suffer shame and being exposed to disgrace for the sake of Jesus' name. Yet they never cease for a single day, both in the temple area and at home, to teach and to proclaim the good news. Start preaching again and teaching of Jesus, the Christ, the Messiah. Wow, can you all give a clap of hands for the after? Okay, that was some wonderful and different acting which I have not seen in any other church. Once more. I enjoyed it. Thank you everyone. Now, what would you think if any one of you, or you had to experience what Peter or the apostles experienced there, what you just saw? Can you be a little loud? How would you feel that if any one of you or all of you had to experience what Peter just experienced here now? Yeah, please. Very good. See, he's being very honest answer. He will be scared, right? He will also think, I did even become an apostle. Why did Jesus choose me to be an apostle, right? It's a honest answer. Okay, who else? Sorry? Can you be a little loud and not able to hear you? Same thing, okay. So, you'll be scared or you will think why you have to become an apostle? So, do you think if you were an apostle, now if you are an apostle, would you be able to do the same thing what Peter did now, or you would have reacted differently? Keep following God even when it is hard. Okay? That is the Bible point for this lesson. Okay? And the key words that we are going to learn is I'm going to read from James chapter 1, verses 2 to 3. Consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Okay? James 1, 2 to 3. That's the key words for the lesson. The Bible point we are learning today is keep following God even when it's hard. Can you repeat it?
Keep following God even when it's hard.
Once more.
Keep following God even when it's hard.
So what do we do when life becomes tough? When we face situations like how the apostles face, we turn back, we run away, or we stop doing things what we're doing. So what do? We keep following God even when it's hard. What do? Together.
Keep following God when it's hard.
We keep following God even when it's hard. Okay. So what happens here is, as we read and we saw the enactment, okay, the apostles and the other disciples of Jesus. Now we only saw about Peter here, but the other disciples of Jesus, they all actually have to suffer a lot. Correct? We read in the Bible, right? We see a lot of instances where they had to go under a lot of trouble, lot of suffering, lot of persecution for the faith that they had on Jesus Christ. But what did they do? They kept following and following and following God. They never quit or gave up. Excuse me. They never quit or gave up. So what was their encouragement? Keep following God even when it is hard. Do you know? Okay, and when it got hard, let's look into it more. Let's dig a little bit more deeper and see what happened. Okay. Now, when you all open your student books, can you all have your student books copy with you? The Bible bus book. So Xerox, yes, yeah. Is it distributed? Oh, yes. So everyone has pens or pencils with you? Once the page is distributed, I want you all to split into 4 groups. 4 groups, so you can join only for this activity. Okay. And there are 4 instances given there. Everyone has pens? Okay, and in your groups, okay, I would like you to choose someone as the reader. Okay, one person will do all the reading. Choose someone in your group. Assign someone in your group who will do all the reading. Assign someone in your group who will do all the reading. Okay, and another person to write down all your answers. One person to write down all your notes or your thoughts or your answers. Another person to find out all whatever you are finding, whatever the discoveries you are making in the reading. Another person to record that. And the 4th person is basically the encourager. You motivate the team to do it. Okay. So one person will be the reader. One person would record the group's answers. The answers you will write down. The other person will record the group's findings. What is your group's finding, individual finding? And one person to encourage the group. I will give you 3 minutes. Okay? And the time starts now. One group will do Peter and the Apostles. Just a minute. This side will do Peter and the Apostles. The group behind that will do Stephen. And the group this side back will do Peter and John. And the group sitting here will do Paul. Okay? So one person writes down the answers, another person writes down the findings, your individual findings in the group. One person reads, one person encourages the group to go on. Yeah. Okay, you have 1 more minute to finish your discussions. Last 1 minute.
Minutes over? 15 minutes? 15 minutes?
We almost 1 hour, 5 minutes. We started at 4:20. It's almost started at 4:20. It's already 5:16.
Only 1 hour by 5 minutes.
Should have been completed by now.
I mean, the third part was the debriefing post session and that's over.
Yeah, you wrap this one and go to the final.
Is it? Okay. First game to go.
Because you're doing 4 languages.
Okay, time's up. Time's up, time's up. Everyone, time's up, please. Can we all clap for each other? Everyone. Okay, I'm sure you have. Can I look here? You're running out of time. So I'm sure you all did a lot. Okay, I'm sure you all did a lot of you had interesting discussions. You did a lot of good findings. Everyone had very good findings. Yes, you found out something new. Okay, we can probably continue, right? Okay, later if you want, but just because of the lack of time. Okay, so I believe you had a good time of reading and you're finding new things. Probably later, if you have time, you can spend time in discussing them. Okay, within your group, the findings what you found. Okay, so see, we probably won't be facing the same kind of persecution what the apostles faced in the Bible passage what we read today in our days. Okay, but we can all face persecution in one or the other way, right? We can all face persecutions or challenges or suffering in different ways for believing in Jesus. We all face that? Yes or no? Yes, in some or other way we all face that, right? Probably not to the extent how Peter and the apostles felt it, okay? But the apostles, but what did the apostles do during that time? The apostles and Peter, they looked to God for their strength, okay? Now, what I want you to do is, after you all go back home, okay? Since because of the lack of time, okay, we have something called as prayer for the persecuted section on your Bible bus book, okay? You can all go home, find a place alone, spend some time alone, okay? And each of you can think in the different ways we are all persecuted or we suffer because of our faith in Jesus, okay? Maybe it is in your schools, in your workplace, in the general area, wherever it is, okay? And think about that and write a personal prayer, okay? Write a personal prayer which you can pray to God, okay? Now, to conclude, okay, no matter whatever happens, whatever sufferings or persecutions we face because of the faith that we practice, okay, what happens? Keep following God even when it is hard. Can you all repeat it? Keep following God. Okay, keep following God. So no matter what happens, what persecution, what suffering you face for practicing your faith in Jesus, you keep following God. Keep following God. Yeah, not just keep following God. Keep following God even when it is hard. Okay. Once for everyone, loudly together. Keep following God when it is hard. Okay. Now turning to your bully challenge section. Okay. There are 3 things what we can actually do. We can actually, write the name of someone with whom you want to share about Jesus. You can pray about that person. In your books, you can write the name of that person. You can pray about Jesus, and then you can talk to that person. After praying to Jesus, you can talk to that person about Jesus. Okay, or you can tell about someone in your family. Okay, today's Bible story, what we learned. Okay, you can do that. And thirdly, every morning you can pray and tell God that you're going to follow Him that day, no matter whatever happens. Even if it is hard, you're going to follow God. Every day morning, you can pray that prayer. Okay? So what I want you to do is I would want everyone to choose any one of the daily challenges in that. Okay? Any one activity, either activity number 1, activity number 2, or activity number 3. Okay? Personally, what I'll be doing is I will choose activity number 1 and go to pray for someone with whom I'm going to talk about Jesus, and then I'm going to share with that person about Jesus. Okay, so just the same way I chose How we can choose what not to do. So what happens then if we face persecutions and sufferings? Okay, keep following God even when it is hard. Okay? And after going up also you can discuss the same with your family, in your family devotion time with your parents. Okay? And see what they have, what we can learn from our parents or with your other family members. Discuss about that. Okay? And we can learn a lot by discussing this with each other. Okay? So can we all pray and close the class? Who would want to pray? Okay, everyone wants Peter to pray. I think we'll request Peter to come front and pray and close the session.
Peter, come on, Peter.
Peter was singled out.
Okay, please stand up. பிதாவே கர்த்தாவே இந்த மாநிலம் ஜெயிப்பதற்கு நீர் இந்த அற்புதம் பாட்டம் கொடுத்ததும் நன்றி கர்த்தாவே கர்த்தாவே நீர் மட்டும் எங்களுக்கு தெரிஞ்சிருக்க வேண்டாம் நீங்க வாழ்க்கையானது எப்படி செஞ்சிருப்போம் நாங்கள் இருக்கோம் ஐயா நான் இல்லைன்னா இந்த மாதிரி சொல்லி வாழ்ந்துட்டோம் எனக்கு தெரியாது கர்த்தாவே ஆனால் நீங்கள் பார்க்கும்போது நாங்கள் எல்லாரும் இப்படிதான் இருக்கணும் இதை வாழ வேண்டும் என்று உங்களுடைய வார்த்தை மூலமா மனிதனும் ஆட்சி செய்து கொண்டிருக்க தேவையாக அதற்காக உங்களுக்கு நன்றி கர்த்தாவே கத்தை உங்களுடைய பட்சத்தில் நான் பார்க்கும்போது சகோதர ஒன்றா சேர்ந்து கத்தை நான் எப்படி எப்படிலாம் நாங்கள் கற்றுக் கொடுக்க வேண்டும் என்று கத்தை நானும் கற்றுக் கொடுக்க நினைக்கிறோம் நான் பார்க்கும்போது இப்போ நாங்களே கதைக்கு நாங்களே சில இந்த பாக்கியம் கிடைக்காம இருந்திருக்கு ஆனால் கத்தாவே எங்களுக்கு கிடைக்காம இந்த வருகின்ற சில்ட்ரன்ஸ்க்காக நாங்கள் எடுத்து சொல்கிற வார்த்தையாகும் இல்லை உங்களுடைய வார்த்தை இருந்து அவரும் கேள்வி பிள்ளை இருக்கிறதாக நான் தெரிஞ்சு காலகட்டத்தை பார்க்கும்போது வேறு சகோதர ஒன்றா சேர்ந்து நீங்கள் எல்லோரும் இந்த கூட்டத்தில் அழைத்து வந்து நான் அநேக விஷயங்கள் கற்றுக்கொண்டு நான் எந்த விஷயமே கற்றுக்கொண்டது மட்டும் இல்லாமல் ஒரு விஷயமாட்டும் அதனை தொடர்ந்து கீழ்கொண்டு உண்மைக்கேற்ற பிள்ளைகளை நாங்கள் வாழ்க்கை வாழ்வதும் உதவி சொன்னது நிச்சயமாக காலகட்டத்தை கதை இந்த கோல் மட்டும் சகோதர வீட்டுக்கு போக வரைக்கும் சேர்ந்து போய் சேர்ந்து போகிறதுக்கு உதவி செய்யுங்க கதை யாருக்கு காலதர்ஷன் எதுவாக இருந்தாலும் நீரை துணையாக காட்ட வேண்டும் இருந்தாலும் நீர் இந்த வாக்கியம் வந்ததுக்காக உங்களுக்கு குரான ஒரு நன்றி செலுத்தி ஏற்றுக்கொண்டு இயேசு கிறிஸ்து மூலமாக கேட்கும் நல்ல பிதாவே ஆமென்.
So, if you have any questions or clarifications, you can ask us. We can. Okay, brothers and sisters, just listen. Okay, brothers and sisters, just before we finish, I hope everybody's paying attention. Okay, so if you have any questions, yes, you can ask during the break when we finish now. But before that, let's give a big hand to Michelle and Sam, who trained all of us. Now, whatever he taught, the way he did it, it is for the children, right? Obviously, you guys know, you follow Jesus even if it is hard, right? But this is the point you have to get into the children. That is what he was basically teaching. So this is how you also do the creative act out, right, in the children's ministry, as you teach the children the lesson. So he was basically teaching one of the lesson and also doing the Family Connect. Family Connect book is a separate book. If the child wants to buy that, they have to buy it. It's 90 rupees. We already talked to your region leaders. So I also want to appreciate the regional leaders who are taking a lot of effort to organize the children's ministry in each of the region, right? Nathan and Mary, we will definitely be doing God's guidance. In fact, Nathan is the person who introduced to Group India. He only suggested, then we reached out to Michelle and all this happened. And then we also have Jaishil and Amuda who takes care of, let's give a hand, they are just left because they have to take care of something. They have been taking care of Banaswari and Kamanahalli, that area. And then of course, the one and only Pradeep and Danya. Right? They are the celebrities, you know them, right? They are the leading architects in South Asia. Different case you don't know. You have to buy I'll talk about that later. So they take care of the South region, children's ministry. And then as of now, these Shaman and myself are taking care of the East region. And then KR Puram,
which is one of the difficult ministries. Very good ministry because a lot of children are there also. Abhishek and Rosie. Let's give a big hand. They are young married couple, but they are now growing up to take care of the entire care group. So thanks all the teachers who are coming here, sitting for last 2.5 hours. We started a little late, 3 o'clock only. The session was for 2.5 hours, so we are on dot, finishing at 5:30. It's 2.5 hours, right? But if we had started at 2 o'clock, then 4:30 we would have finished. But because of the rain and things. So great. We'll catch you up maybe next session. But in your region, please, be helpful to the children's ministry. Any doubts, talk to your people, talk to us. Even Sam can be reached. Michelle is there to help us out. We have the books now already distributed. So please take the books and then you can prepare. So one of the important things before we go, without preparing will not be effective. Like Sam has to prepare and teach, right? So you have to know what lesson you are teaching, prepare it, and prepare the teachers who are going to enact also. So they will act it out and then the children will know. So that is important. So great. Thanks a lot for coming and spending your valuable Sunday time with all of us. Thanks a lot. Thanks again, Michelle and Sam, for taking your time. Amen.